What's up? Thralls of Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I got another album review for you. Once again, this one was brought to us courtesy of Screaming Toilet. Again, fun site, lots of cool podcasts, reviews, and movies, TV shows, music. Definitely check it out. It's pretty cool. So today I'm reviewing Nocturnal Breed's new album, We Only Came for the Violence. This came out in August on Folter Records. This band's been around since 1996. This is their 6th release, and they play pretty much straight up black and thrash metal. I have one of their albums, Fields of Rot, which was originally on Agonia Records. So this is a different label for them. And from what I found on Encyclopedia Metaldom and just doing some research, their live show includes strippers, which is a thing. I might have to check them out live sometime, I think. So right away, the album opens up with an intro, Iron Winter, which consists of air raid sirens and some biblical quotes and such, and pretty much, mood building such. Now the opening track, Choke on Blood, really explodes. Like, it is a nasty, fast song that pretty much embodies both black metal and thrash metal, as black and thrash should. Now the one thing I was definitely taken back by were the vocals. Having heard their other album, Fields of Rot, the vocals were pretty solid, pretty much standard fare for black and thrash. This time, the frontman's approach seems to be way more over the top. Lots of high-pitched screams, and it's a little off-putting, and they're so out in front they're inescapable. He almost sounds like an ultra over-the-top version of Thomas Lindbergh from At the Gates. It's so shrill sometimes that it really kind of takes away. Now, this song I thought was, while energetic and bombastic, was a little scattered. It didn't really come together as well as a song. It just came together as a violent outburst necessarily. So as far as opening up the album, there were some issues, but I liked the energy, so that was kind of cool. So it was kind of half and half. Now I think when you get later in the album, you get more to their bass, their sound. Necrohagel was the first one that I heard that I really got into. It was kind of a mishmash of Motorhead meets Slayer with a nice blackened touch to it. The vocals seemed a little bit more, I don't even think subdued is the right word, but less out there. And this one was very riff driven, and it had a good hook to it, and that's the kind of stuff I need. It was definitely an improvement over the opening track. I thought it was more cohesive, and this was more indicative of their sound as the album went along. The title track actually has almost a Judas Priest feel to it. That mixed with black metal and thrash metal, but the trad metal vibe is still there. The riff is really solid and actually has a good catchy melody to it. This one favored a bit more the thrash side, I think. There was a cool lead in it that actually had some bluesy notes to it. It really kind of reminded me of early Bay Area thrash. So definitely like a early Metallica feel. Once again, Slayer, of course. The song just felt fun, and again, this was one that was really starting to draw me into it a bit more so than the opening track. Now this trend continues on the next track, Frozen to the Cross. Again, very similar feel to the previous two. Hasn't really worn out its welcome yet because, again, the energy's there. It's sort of favoring the thrashier side of things, which I'm a fucking giant thrash fan, so that was pretty fucking cool for me. But this still had a blackened touch to it. It really reminded me of like the Circle the Wagons era, Dark Throne, which, that was kind of a divisive album for some, but I really like that. I kind of like their punk approach, and punk is definitely all over this album. Now this one, you really get a sense of the production here. It's much more raw than the album I had before, Fields of Rot. The album overall has a feel of almost like a remaster of an old black metal album, like something like early Venom or Bathory. It sounds a little more polished than maybe the original version, but it still sounds very raw and gritty. The only thing I can really knock it on in terms of production is the bass drum is kind of a lackluster thud. It really doesn't have a distinct punch to it. And when you're doing these punky D-beat songs, you kind of want to have that bass drum just kind of driving the song with those quick hits. Thought it was okay sounding overall, but maybe a little bit in the bass drum. But I like the raw grittiness of this. It definitely embodies more of the punk and black metal side. And the guitar sounded really good on this too. So this was kind of, I think, an ideal mix for this sort of style of music. Now, it does change its pace a little bit. Shark to the Wehrmacht actually had maybe like a really heavy glam metal / early heavy metal feel to it. It kind of reminded me of Wasp, to be honest. You know, it was a good change of pace. Interesting song. It kind of reminded me of something that would be perfect on a cheesy zombie movie soundtrack. You know, definitely B-movie material. It was just kind of a fun, goofy song, and there's a lot of fun, goofy shit on this, to be honest. Like, it definitely revels in its cheese. And why not? Cheese is fun. Now, after that, we get into Limbs of Gehenna, which I thought was interesting because this one favors the more black metal side. There's more tremolo riffing that is more indicative of straightforward black metal, like Mayhem and such. And they didn't all but abandon thrash in this one, but it was nice to see them favor one side of the spectrum rather than the other a little bit more. And it's kind of a nice balance, too, because you kind of want a good balance in fusion genres like black and death metal and black and thrash metal. You want to see them embody both subgenres pretty well. Now, another song I really liked in it was Bless the Whore. This one instantly reminded me more of a band like Toxic Holocaust in terms of it's just a stripped down, kind of bare bones, thrashy punk song almost. You know, I also like the fact that the vocals were in a bit lower register. They weren't shrieking all over the place, which is kind of an issue I had across the board on this. Sometimes there's points on here where this guy just doesn't want to, you know, reel it in just a little bit. It's all over the top almost all the time. This one had a little bit deeper growl on this. It was a good change of pace for me. I thought it closed particularly well with A Million Miles of Trench. This song kind of had a sort of a mid-tempo, bathery, battle song quality to it that I liked. There's a lot of cool guitar harmonies on this, and that was kind of a change because there's mostly just a lot of squealing leads and such on here. So overall, I'm going to give this album 3 stars. I think it's a pretty solid album, pretty straightforward black and thrash, good punky energy to it. The songs are fun. Some questionable choices maybe with the vocals being so over the top, and maybe some slight knocks on production. The album does kind of have kind of a one-trick pony for the most part, but it does venture out a little bit. All in all, I definitely recommend jamming it, especially if you like black and thrash. So, if you like the review, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. Catch you guys later.